Tyler Denham,
Present. Sorry, I got confused with the first.
that's okay. Kevin Doby, Karen Flores,
Here.
Sandy Flores,
I'm here.
Jackie Kellogg, Devonna McLaughlin, Moses Milazzo,
Here.
Corey Runge,
Here.
Ross Schaefer,
Here.
Glenn Slivers, Haley Zaroya.
Here.
Back to you.
All right. For item 3, do I have a volunteer to read the land acknowledgement?
I can read it.
Thank you. Proceed.
The Housing Commission humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by native descendants, boulder mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Runge. And now for agenda item 4, public comment. At this time, any member of the public may address the commission on any subject within their jurisdiction that is not scheduled before the commission on that day. Due to open meeting laws, the commission cannot discuss or act on items presented during this portion of the agenda. To address the commission on an item that is not on the agenda, please wait for the chair to call for public comment at the time the item is heard. Adriana, is there anyone present for public comment?
I do see some members of the public, and it looks like we've got Councilmember Spence that would like to provide a public comment. He's got his hands up.
Yes, Councilmember Spence, as a member of the public, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and give your public comment. And just at the beginning, state your name for the record. Are you there, Councilmember Spence? Your hand's raised for public comment. I think we may have to circle back to this. Sorry, I'm just checking if he said anything in the chat. I do see that he lowered his hand, so I'll have to assume.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. Yes, I'd like to. My name is David Spence. I am a current member of the City Council, but I'm here as a citizen to make an inquiry. I guess it's a question, not a comment. Has the Housing Commission ever considered co-housing as a potential solution to our housing crisis? And if so, are there barriers to co-housing being established in Flagstaff?
Councilmember Spence, given that this is public comment and that item is not on our agenda, we're actually unable to respond. We're happy to meet with you one-on-one and go over Housing Commission, how it works, et cetera, if you would like that opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'll listen to the rest of the agenda.
Awesome. Good to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Adriana, do we have any other public comment, or did we receive any public comment by email?
We did not, Commissioner Denham.
Gotcha. All right, for moving on to agenda item 5, approval of minutes. I will just note that we do not have any minutes to approve at this meeting. And in the end of February regularly scheduled meeting, we will approve both the January meeting minutes and today's meeting minutes. So just noting that for the record. All right, now on to action items, or action item, just one, 6A, discussion and consideration of recommendation to City Council for approval of a resolution of the Flagstaff City Council recognizing the housing emergency declared by resolution number 2020-66 is exacerbated by the proliferation of short-term rentals limiting housing stock available to Flagstaff residents, and urging the state legislature of the state of Arizona to address the impacts of short-term rentals on the supply of housing for Arizona residents. And I believe we have an introduction to this item from our housing director, Sarah Dar. So feel free to take over.
Actually, I'm going to take it, Tyler. Hi, everyone. I'm Justina Costa. I'm the Assistant Housing Director. Thank you so much for meeting on such short notice. And I'm so grateful that all of you were able to make it today. So this emerged a week and a half ago. It was direction from the city manager's office that housing staff bring this resolution forward to go in front of council on March 4th. The mayor had indicated interest, and so city management directed staff to bring this forward. For a little bit of background, this resolution was tailored after resolutions that have also been adopted throughout the state. And since Tyler did such a great job reading it, I'm not going to read it to you. But I did want to say that we are here today to discuss this resolution, what it entails, and then get your recommendation at the end of the meeting of how you would like to proceed. And those options we will outline after our discussion. But I did want to, so here's the language for the resolution. I did want to say that, are we going to shift here? There we go. The resolution, adopting the resolution does comply with our 10-year housing plan goals, specifically Policy Initiative Protect 1, which reads that the City Council will continue to lobby and support federal and state legislation to encourage changes to federal and state laws and to increase the amount of funding available for the preservation and construction of affordable housing. And then specifically, this resolution targets Strategy Protect 1.1, which reads to advocate to the state of Arizona to allow greater local control of vacation rentals and second homes. And so I wanted to guide you all really quickly. I'm going to stop sharing. And I know that Adriana had sent the resolution to you all to review ahead of time. I hope that you had an opportunity to do so. But for your reference, I do have it here. And our goal is to show you, how come it's not showing? Please hold. Let's do it this way. Here it is. So the way that a resolution is structured, just for some of you that may not be as familiar, is that at the top, as you see, you have the resolution number, which we will get from the city clerk once this goes to council on their final agenda. You have the title of the resolution that Tyler read. And then here we have a bunch of whereases, and I'm going to scroll because there's a lot. So this is the backup to the resolution. So it's either historical data or information that's relevant to why this resolution is important and why we are bringing it forward at this time. So I'm going to keep scrolling to the very bottom because the juicy part of the resolution is right here in these sections. These 3 sections are the sections that the city council resolves by declaring the resolution. So if we could just go over them really quickly, and then we'll give you some more background as to kind of how this resolution emerged. So section 1.1, actually, I'm not going to read these to you. Why don't you all read it so you are familiar, and then in a couple minutes, we can move on. Okay, hopefully that was enough time, but I'll leave it up just in case you want to continue reading. We have with us from the city manager's office, Sarah Langley, who is very familiar with the legislation and more about how this specific resolution kind of came to fruition, and a little bit more about that. So Sarah, if you want to pop on and just give people a little bit of background, and then we can open it up for commission discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Justina, and good afternoon, commissioners and council members. My name is Sarah Langley. I'm the Public Affairs Director for the city, and I work a lot with our Intergovernmental Affairs program. So I just wanted to provide some background on short-term rentals and how that topic has played out at the legislature recently. So as you're probably aware, we've seen a proliferation of short-term rentals in Arizona over the past decade or so. And just to be clear, short-term rentals, or STRs, are any residential unit that's leased for less than 30 days. And then, of course, STRs can have significant impacts on smaller communities because they can start to take up a sizable portion of a city's housing stock by taking those units out of circulation for longer-term rentals or other types of opportunities for housing for residents. So cities currently have very limited ability to regulate short-term rentals, and that is due to state law. So back in 2016, the legislature passed a bill called SB 1350, and that required cities to allow short-term rentals within all residential zones within their boundaries. So really, as soon as this happened back in 2016, cities began pushing back against this and pushing for the ability to better regulate short-term rentals. We've had some minor successes, I would say. Back in 2019, a bill passed that allowed cities to require contact information for owners of short-term rentals. And then in 2022, another bill passed which allowed cities to require licensing. So all short-term rentals now in Flagstaff have to be licensed. But these two bills really were more aimed at addressing the sort of party house issue. So short-term rentals that see a lot of events and parties and create kind of nuisance issues. We've not really had any legislation to date that has allowed cities to regulate the number of short-term rentals. And that's really what Flagstaff would be interested in. We currently have, I believe it's 1,142 short-term rentals in our community. So that makes up about 3.6% of our housing stock. So of course, it's not the only cause of housing issues in our community, but it's definitely a contributing factor. And we currently have no ability to regulate that number. So that's a bit of background on the legislative situation. I'll turn it back to you, Justina, for further discussion.
Thank you so much. So, sorry, my PowerPoint is lagging. I don't know why. So before we start the discussion, I did want to let you know that as a commission, you essentially have 3 action options. And here they are. You can forward this resolution to City Council with a recommendation for approval. Again, this is going to City Council on March 4th. We can amend the resolution and forward the amended resolution to City Council with a recommendation for approval, or you can forward this resolution to City Council with a recommendation for denial. Now, as mentioned in previous meetings, City Council is the decision-making body, obviously, and so the Housing Commission's role is to recommend either approval or denial, but we did want to bring this forward to you as it is an incredibly important topic here in our community, and we wanted to ensure that you had the opportunity to discuss this and have plenty of time to discuss it, and hence why we had to have a special meeting. So with that, I will leave this up, but I do invite you all to let us know what you think, and I will actually pop up the main resolution so that if there are changes that you would like to propose, we can make those directly into the document. So Tyler, I open it up to commissioner discussion.
Yeah, and again, any commissioners that have questions or comments, raise your hand and I'll call on you, or enter a C or Q in the chat. And I'll give a minute or two for. I see Commissioner Runge has a comment. Go ahead.
Yes, I must say that I've got a lot of familiarity with this topic as I do own a couple rentals, STRs, and am connected to people who do management on STRs, and I have a quite extensive experience on the topic and the regulations and the changes in the laws that they have occurred. As I've witnessed it, they don't represent a significant portion of the housing stock in which spending much time or focus on it would have an impact in increasing the housing stock to make housing more affordable on that. They also can have an extreme negative consequence to the city through reductions in tax revenue, as STRs do contribute a high degree of tax revenue. With the current state of affairs and changes in the economic policy from the White House, the city is also dependent on many other things like grant funding, which may be cut significantly in many other ways. And to have a free form of tax revenue and generation, it seems like a reasonable way to continue to operate the city and keep it going. In fact, in 2021, STR activities contributed $893 million in economic output, specifically in Coconino County, which includes Flagstaff. This supported 10,282 jobs and generates $65.3 million in tax revenue. Many of these jobs cater to lower income workforces, including house cleaners, landscapers, waitstaff, handyman, and other service industry roles, directly supporting the local economy and providing employment opportunities for Flagstaff residents. The level of economic contribution is crucial, especially considering the impact of only 3.6% on the housing inventory. And I believe that there's a lot of economic risks and over-regulation of the STR industry. Not to mention Flagstaff is definitely a tourism dependent on the local economy, in which we invite many people. There is some statements in the sections of the proposal that talk, one, kind of making judgment on the types of people, mentioning party houses, basically. In there. And in my experience, most of the people using STRs are not that. They are families that are larger than you would stay at a hotel, providing places to come and tour our local facilities and amenities. Although there are, of course, sometimes that parties do occur that can impact a neighborhood. However, that is not a majority of the business, even through this 3.6% of the housing stock. There's also other available options to regulating noise complaints, such as police responses, and that is how they regulate the general population that lives here additionally. So I believe that there's other tools that we have at our disposal to regulate disorderly conduct and those type of impacts on neighborhoods. I believe a more important agenda item would be looking at if they're going to regulate something, the second homes, as they do compose a significant portion of the vacant homes in Flagstaff that are not used as frequently as STRs. So I believe that the existing local regulations in Flagstaff already has in place, in addition to the registration requirements, is significant enough. So I'd have to say my opinion is going to be that we forward this with a recommendation for denial.
Thank you for the comments. And I see that Commissioner Zaraya has a queue, and then after her, Commissioner Flores.
So I guess I have a couple of follow-up questions based on that, but my main question was going to be, I mean, I guess what does it look like for implementation? When I read this, I mean, but just for a moment, putting aside the economic impacts, and thank you for those, facts, Commissioner Runge, that was helpful. I read this more of giving, making sure neighborhoods remain of a certain character and aren't overrun by Airbnbs. I did read it partially as a solution to emergency housing, but that was not my main takeaway. So I think that, you know, for me, it is almost like a second layer of protection for neighborhoods that maybe don't have an HOA or something like that. So I mean, perhaps if there was a lot of, you know, dissonance within the commission of how to approach this, maybe, you know, it could, I don't think having neighborhoods get to choose the character of their neighborhood is a bad thing. And it would open up a few units. Second homes, I did want to say, just as a comment, like for example, for me, my house is technically my mom's second home, but it's owned in a trust, but I live in it. So I don't think that I was actually curious. One of my questions was as to how the statistics were derived. Because I think that's probably just taking, you know, maybe assessors or treasurer information and, you know, seeing what we see. So that was my question. One of my questions was, how was that derived? Because I do think there are probably lots of people up here living in second homes that are maybe owned by someone else from on a long-term basis. And then my other question was just really, what does the implementation process look like if we forward this to council and it gets approved? So like how, like administratively, how does it work? Like how would you actually go about regulating the the STRs? Like what would that look like? What would more legislation be passed? How practically speaking does that look? So
And I assume Miss Langley has her hand raised because she wants to respond directly to that question.
That's correct,
Yeah.
Commissioner. Yeah, I just wanted to offer some additional context on the resolution. So the resolution is really just calling for the Arizona State Legislature to allow cities to have a level of control in regulating short-term rentals. It doesn't really prescribe a solution for what cities should do to regulate. It basically is just calling for the return of that ability to regulate. So, you know, a community like Sedona, which STRs currently make up around 18% of their housing stock, may need a different type of regulation than Flagstaff does. But the idea is to return that control to the local communities, because each of our communities has such a different situation when it comes to our housing and when it comes to short-term rentals. So if the Housing Commission were to forward this to council with a recommendation, to approve, the council would then make their own decision whether or not to approve. And then this basically just becomes another tool in our tool belt at the legislature to share with our state representatives, saying, hey, you know, this is an issue for Flagstaff. It may be a different type of issue for other cities, but it is impacting all of us, and it would be beneficial to have that level of local control, is kind of what the resolution is saying. So I hope that was helpful.
that was helpful. Thank you.
Commissioner Flores.
Thanks, Tyler. I just wanted to share a few things just from some personal perspectives. One coming from, I sit on a board of an HOA here in one of the neighborhoods in Flagstaff. And if a property is located in an HOA, then that HOA and the homeowners in that HOA are the ones that determine whether or not short-term rentals are allowed, any of the rules around all of that. And so I don't know how many homes are out there that are short-term rentals that are in HOAs, but I'm imagining that any city legislation would not be able to be enforced in an HOA since they do have their own protections. And we do have a lot of HOAs, townhomes, single-family residences, things like that. So I would be curious to know, of the short-term rentals that we have, how many are governed by HOAs and how does that impact this number? Secondly, since I am in the lending business and I do mortgages, a lot of my clients are second home buyers. They buy a home up here, use it during specific times of the year, and then they do rent it out when they're not here. So, unless there's specific rules around, second home owners and what they can and can't do, I think that's a difficult thing to legislate as well. And then the third thing I just wanted to bring up is there are a lot of properties that are short-term rentals that are not in the affordable price range to where a majority of our citizens can afford them. They are taken up by a lot of second home buyers or people that are retired and have a higher income that would, I don't feel, meet the immediate need of a lot of the folks who can't get housing right now. And that's all I got.
Yeah, I can take a crack at the first part of that question, and then I'll hand it to staff actually to correct me. But I'm pretty sure for HOAs, if an HOA didn't bar short-term rentals when it was formed, then it can't add on that regulation later. But if it's a newly formed HOA, I believe it can regulate short-term rentals. And I'll turn it over to staff to correct me if I'm wrong there, as well as answer the other parts of that. Yes, go ahead, Ms. Langley.
Thank you, Commissioner Denham. I'm actually not sure. Staff may need to get back to you on that. I was under the impression that an HOA could add on regulations later. So let us come back to you on that unless any other of the housing staff are aware. But you are correct that if the city were to regulate short-term rentals, the HOA would supersede that. So right now, for example, the city cannot regulate short-term rentals, but an HOA can. So an HOA can prohibit short-term rentals in their neighborhood, whereas neighborhoods without an HOA, short-term rentals are then automatically permitted.
And I can answer that to the HOA. This is Karen again. HOAs can amend that piece of it. They do have to go out for vote and have a specific number of residents respond to it, approving it. And I have seen it happen. So that is an option.
Yeah, happy to be wrong on that account. And in the chat, I think it was Commissioner Runge and then Commissioner Schaefer in that order.
Yes, I was just going to respond to Commissioner Zaroya's question. Also, the statistics and some of the information that I used in my rebuttal was the economic impact of short-term rentals in Arizona dated February of 2022 by the Grounds Consulting Group.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Hi, everyone. I appreciate the conversation. I wanted to just share that one of the things that Sarah presented about that caught my attention in the number of that, I think she said 3.6% or maybe 3.5%, 3.6 of those units. I think one of the things that caught my attention about is that there's really no current way to regulate that moving forward. And so while that 3.6% might be what is today, it just feels like this is an opportunity in the sense of where it could be headed, and just maybe those units are what they are today, but how does that grow? Do we see that on the decline? I don't think so. So that was just something that I wanted to call attention to, and appreciate the presentation.
And I see that Commissioner Kellogg has her hand raised.
Oh, sorry, I forgot my hand was still up. I was just gonna say what Karen said. HOAs can change that rule. They have to have 80% of the membership vote in order to change. And that is not 80% of the vote, that is 80% of the actual members of the HOA. So when Country Club tried to push that through, they lost because they did not get 80% of the membership. So that's why people still think that Continental prohibits HOAs, but they did try and they couldn't do it because they didn't get the vote. Because in my experience, you're not going to get 80% of everybody to vote, period. And it's not 80% of the vote, it's 80% of the entire owners. I had another one and I already forgot it.
Yeah, but thank you for that clarification. That's probably the part that I remember, that it's not impossible, just very, very difficult.
It is very difficult. Imagine voting in an election. What is the percentage we get of people to vote? 25, maybe 30% on a good day. Getting an entire population of an HOA to vote is virtually impossible.
And Adriana, I see that a member of the public has their hand raised. Is it possible to cut to public comment and then come back to finish up commissioner comments?
This is actually our attorney, Tyler.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I
So
didn't
let's
recognize the name.
call on her
Yes,
next.
go ahead.
Thanks so much, Commissioner Denham and Adriana. Christina Rubalcava, Senior Assistant City Attorney for the City of Flagstaff. I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page. So I think we know an HOA can modify CC&R requirements upon a certain percentage of the vote. However, there was a recent court case that came out that said if the area that the HOA through the CC&Rs attempts to regulate was not an area that was likely to be anticipated at the time that the CC&Rs were established, that would actually be off limits, even if they later had the requisite percentage of votes approving. So it's just become, there's another layer of complication that has been fairly recently added. So wanted to say that. Also, just wanted to clarify that in the event that the state of Arizona did give the city the authority to regulate short-term rentals, it would not it wouldn't impair the contract, the CC&R regulations that certain neighborhoods have, but it could be in addition to. So you could have a neighborhood that had CC&Rs, for example, that were silent on short-term rentals, and so they would therefore be permitted, but the city could still regulate, reasonably where they would go, and if there was a distance requirement. I'm making stuff up. I don't know what any given jurisdiction would want, but those regulations would still apply even in neighborhoods where there are CC&R restrictions. So hopefully that clarifies it.
Yeah, thank you for that additional context. And I'm pretty sure it's that court case that I'm remembering, because I just recall that the article I was reading about, it was specifically revolving around a court case. I don't see any other C's or Q's in the chat, so I'll ask my own questions. Yes, Sarah Dar.
I'm happy to go after you, Tyler. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just had a question. As far as the content goes, of the resolution, I'm fine with it. It seems pretty benign. I'm curious though, is this request coming from the League of Arizona Cities and Towns? Because I did notice that some other cities just very recently put out similar language, like Sedona. And that may be a question for Ms. Langley.
Thank you, Commissioner Denham. This request is not coming from the League. It actually came directly from Mayor Jablow with the City of Sedona, directly to Mayor Daggett. I will note that the League is, of course, working on short-term rental issues, and the City of Sedona is a member of the League of Cities and Towns. So this is a topic also being discussed by the League with our representatives, but this resolution specifically and the request to pass it came directly from the City of Sedona, and the League is not involved in this resolution effort as far as I'm aware.
Okay. And this might be a rabbit hole, but to give a bit of context about why I'm curious there is, last year I saw the League attempt to use short-term rentals as an excuse to kill unrelated housing bills. And I just thought this might be part of a similar effort. As someone who follows state politics a lot, I'll often see anytime legislatures work on something like zoning or whatnot, the league lobbyists will try to kill it with the excuse that, oh, this isn't the problem. You're focused on the wrong thing. You should focus on this other thing instead. I do also have some comments about the effectiveness. So I've seen that previous bills to try and enact substantial regulations on short-term rentals have failed. One thing I've noticed is they often fail because they don't distinguish between whole property rentals and residents renting out rooms or ADUs to supplement their income. So in the conversations that happen at the state level, you'll have a lot of legislatures that are otherwise amenable to this type of regulation. They'll hear a lot of personal stories from people like, oh, I have a short-term rental, I rent out an extra room and I need that money to, pay my mortgage. And those stories really resonate. So in my mind, if you were really wanted to get through short-term regulation at the state level, you would probably make that you would distinguish that kind of difference. That's all. Commissioner Flores has a comment. Go ahead and speak.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Sorry, I hope it's not noisy behind me. I think that what we're asking for today, or what we're suggesting or recommending, is just asking for local control. We're not asking for all of those pieces of detail at this point. I think there's a lot of discussion around those details and what it might be. But at the end of the day, I do think that local control would be important for us. As I think Commissioner Schaefer mentioned, what we have today may not be what we have in 6 months or 6 years. And having control here, to work with members of the community to get something that works, I just think is important. So I would be in favor of pushing this forward.
Yeah, that's a good point. We are probably getting a little bit off topic. The resolution itself is quite straightforward. Commissioner Milazzo.
I just want to say thank you. I agree with Commissioner Flores, Sandy. It makes sense to me to push our state legislature to get out of the business of regulating local matters in this way. So I agree.
And if no other, I'm given a moment here for more C's or Q's in the chat. Adriana, yes.
If no other commissioners have comments or questions, Commissioner Denham, I believe it's probably a good time to take public comment, and then we can continue the conversation.
Yes, yeah. If any member, do we have any member of the public that is interested in speaking on this item? If so, you can type a C in the chat or raise your hand and I'll call on you. And when giving your public comment, just state your name at the beginning. I'm not seeing any raised hands or comments. Do you see anything, Adriana?
No, but I'm glad that we took care of that.
Yes. All right. In that case, is any commissioner interested in making a motion?
I will make the motion that we recommend approval of this resolution to go to city council. Is that correct? Did I get that right?
Is that motion phrased correctly?
Commissioner Denham.
Either way, but wouldn't we need to make a decision if we're going to deny it or approve it? Or recommend denying or approving?
Just for reference, the language is on the screen for a recommendation, and it looks like Commissioner Runge has a comment.
Yeah,
I
go
believe
ahead.
Point of order, if I may, I believe there has been a motion made. We either need to withdraw that motion in favor of additional comment or pursue a second. If no second, it will die. And then we can go back to comment if necessary.
Yeah, thank you for that point of order. Commissioner Flores, do you want to proceed with the potential second and vote, or do you want to withdraw for further discussion?
Can I amend the motion to read, I recommend that we forward the resolution to City Council with a recommendation for approval and see if there's a second.
Okay. Yes, so we'll see if we have a second.
This is
and
Moses.
then
I will
we'll take
second.
discussion. Or yes,
This is-
Commissioner Lazo?
This is Moses. I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Flores to forward the resolution to City Council with a recommendation for approval. We have a second from Commissioner Milazzo, and I'll open to discussion before the vote. And I believe Commissioner Runge has comment.
Yeah, well, I was trying to recommend that we forward the resolution to the city council with a recommendation for denial. And in the comments, I don't believe that imposing further regulations on short-term levels will have any impact for the benefit of the city or its citizenry, and that any of these kind of regulations, we have other avenues to regulate behaviors that are impacting the neighborhoods and the character.
I think the path forward would be if the current motion fails, then we would consider an alternative motion. But happy for clarification from staff.
So because we have a motion and a second, we would take a vote. I'm anticipating we'll need a roll call vote so that we can accurately record that. In either case, the comments made today by you, Housing Commission members, will be included in the presentation or in the packet to City Council. So it won't just be this is what happened here, it's an approval, but rather an outlay of the discussion that happened today so that City Council can have a full picture of the conversation that took place, regardless of which way the decision goes. Thank you for the ability to clarify.
Yes, and I'll give another moment for anyone to raise their hand if they want additional discussion before the vote. And doesn't look like there is. So Adriana, can we do a roll call just to make sure we get the votes correct?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Dunham. Kevin Bond, and the motion would be aye or nay. Kevin Bond. Eric Brownfield.
Nay.
Tyler Denham.
Aye.
Kevin Doby. Karen Flores.
Nay.
Sandy Flores.
Aye.
Jackie Kellogg. Jackie, do you have a motion to make or a vote?
Sorry, I said nay.
Okay, thank you. Devonna McLaughlin is absent. Moses.
Aye.
Corey. Runge.
Nay.
Ross Schaefer.
Aye.
Glenn Slivers. Absent. And Haley Zoroya.
Aye.
Okay. Now I might need some assistance from Sarah Dar or our attorney. Looks like we've got 2, 3, 4, 5 ayes and 1, 2, 3,
4 nays.
4 nays. Mm-hmm.
Can you remind me on the rules? In order for the resolution to pass, is it a simple majority or?
It is a simple majority.
All right, in that case, the resolution to forward to City Council with a recommendation of approval does pass on a 5-4 vote. I assume it will be communicated. You already spoke to this before, but it will be communicated to City Council that it was a closely divided vote, and the comments of the commissioners that voted nay will also be forwarded on their concerns.
Yes, Chair, it won't be transcript. It'll be a summary of the conversation, both sides. It will be pointed out what the vote was, and this is scheduled to go to City Council on March 4th for consideration.
Okay. And I see that Councilmember House actually has her hand raised to make a comment.
Yes, thank you. This is Councilmember House, and I'm just going to keep this general because of the number of council members here, but did want to make sure it was noted by commissioners that you do have the ability to come to that meeting and offer public comment during that part of the agenda. So I don't want those who voted on either side of this to think that this was your only opportunity to speak on this matter. You do have the opportunity to come and give public comment as a commissioner, or excuse me, as a member of the public, and would want to clarify that you are speaking on behalf of yourself and not on behalf of the full commission. But that is an option that you have if you wanted to give further comment on this, as well as email outreach as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. All right. In that case, I will move to the next agenda item, which is informational updates to and from commission members, staff, and also future agenda item requests. And we'll start with 8A, an update from the Housing Authority Liaison, which is Commissioner Milazzo, or alternatively, Sarah Dar.
Thank you. My apologies. I did not prepare my update. I didn't realize that was we were going to, excuse me, continue this. So I'm going to have to ask Sarah if you can help me out here and rescue me.
Yeah, it's on the agenda, but I believe the update is probably going to be no update.
We do have one, but given that this is a special meeting and wasn't originally calendared on folks' calendars, the staff would be open to postponing these to our regular meeting scheduled to take place on the 27th out of respect for the commission's time.
Sounds good. In that case, we'll move right to 8B, just checking. Do we have an update from any housing commissioner or other informational items? I actually have one here. So if I wanted to make a future agenda item request, I can make it right now, right?
Yes, I think
Okay.
if that's the agenda says and future agenda item requests, yes.
It appears that it does.
Yep, there you go.
Okay, so I am interested in giving a presentation on development regulations at the February meeting. Is there time for a 15 to 20-minute presentation?
Not council member, there's a habit. Commissioner Dunham, we have extended the February meeting to 3 hours at this point in time, and that time is fully booked. So we would respectfully say not this coming one, but we could calendar it for an upcoming one. Unfortunately, February is already heavily booked.
Okay, that makes sense. Then just as an ending point, I'll ask that that be considered for future agendas, such as in March. And I can speak more to why I would like to present to the commission and some of my frustrations about the lack of progress on some other issues, but this is a special meeting and I want to respect everyone's time. So I'll check real quick. 8C, do we have any updates from housing staff?
Housing staff is happy to defer those out of respect of the commission's time.
Sounds good. In that case, I will adjourn the meeting. I adjourn the meeting at 1:58 p.m. And thank you everyone so much for joining. Again, this is outside of the regular time that we meet. We needed quite a few of you to meet quorum. Really appreciate your time and making this happen on short notice.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.